Good afternoon. If we may, please, let's begin with a moment of silence for Gerald Brown. Thank you very, very much. We miss him. We'll officially call this meeting to order and welcome all of you for being here this afternoon. And we'll now pledge allegiance to the flag, which is to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's consider the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of asks for additions to the agenda. A budget amendment to recognize water and sewer capacity charges. That would be amendment number 19. And after consulting with the attorney earlier this afternoon, would ask a closed session be added at the end of tonight's agenda to consult, for the board to consult with the attorney.
Okay, is 23A okay?
Yes, sir. And I'd suggest that maybe 7A for the budget amendment was appropriate.
7A. Anyone have any other suggested changes? I'm looking for a motion of approval with these two amendments.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, approve the agenda with the addition of the two items
Okay,
of county manager.
is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously approved. All right, number 5 on our agenda, and before I forget it, those of you that might not be familiar, that corner of the room, the northwestern corner of the room, has a table with a copy of information and agenda and so forth and so on that we'll be using in this meeting. So if you want some paperwork, have at it on the back table in the corner. All right. Number 5, approval of minutes, May 31, June 10, and June 21. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve all 3 sets of minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All are approved unanimously, Madam Clerk. Number 6, public comments on agenda items. This is an opportunity for you to speak to the public, anyone that wants to speak to any item that is on the agenda as presented and amended. And if you want to speak, if you will, raise your hand and I'll recognize you. And we have signed up Mr. James Bauer. Golf carts.
Good evening, James Bauer, 329 Ocean Boulevard West. I just want to talk, when we talk more and more about golf carts, more and more about golf cart parking here, more and more about the accessibility of golf carts. I was nearly involved in an accident 2 weeks ago where a golf cart suddenly ran out of power and came to a halt due to the fact that its motive power is an electric battery. I was 3 cars behind it. The cars almost nearly hit each other as well as the golf cart. It goes without saying, anybody that's ever seen one of these things operated on a road, they're inherently dangerous. They have no side body panels. They have no rollover protection. They have no protection whatsoever. Plus, they're being piloted by people that generally have never driven one before. You see a lot of infants on laps, not using the proper safety precautions, not using child safety seats. I really think what we should have is, if we are going to have these golf carts running around, I think we should have some sort of plan going in with where what they have to do is they have to yield way to other vehicles. Because we've all been there where we're driving down the street, there's 15 cars behind a golf cart. It develops into a safety hazard in and of itself. On a related but different matter, it's not really addressed by this, but I'd just like to touch on it. A lot of these are being powered by lithium-ion batteries. The lithium-ion battery is inherently unsafe when it's exposed to water, when it's exposed to salt, when it shorts out. If any of you, I bring this up, if any of you are a fan of Top Gear, Richard Hammond was driving an electric car that rolled over and caught fire. It was powered by lithium-ion batteries. That car, though it was constantly having water put on it, burned for a week. Think about that. If you want to look into a little bit of nightmare, if you're property owners here, look into lithium-ion batteries, how they burn, and what is the procedure for putting them out. I would think that because our parking now is mostly golf cart parking, we're going to see a large increase in these golf carts. I think a great thing that would be is if you have to charge a golf cart, and I would give this over to the police department for enforcement. Forgive me, Chief, if you don't like this idea. But if they have to be charged, they should be charged from under the house, preferably somewhere away from any combustible materials. And once again, they really are a very, very difficult fire to put out, and could develop into a very, very hot, very, very fast-burning fire, which would set the house above it on fire. I'm only saying this just to get a foot into the door before something terrible happens and ruins either property or takes lives on this island. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tracy Thomas?
Hi, I'm Tracy Thomas, 109 Frigate. Just wanted to read a letter that I sent to the commissioners. Why are we discussing the speed limit on Ocean Boulevard again? We just discussed this in 2020. Perhaps you can review the meeting minutes and understand why it was not changed last time. At that time, Police Chief Dixon stated that there had been no accidents or incidents on that section of Ocean Boulevard. There is no data to support that there is a safety issue. I think using the safety trump card is just fear-mongering. The state of North Carolina very recently conducted a speed limit engineering study. The speed limit was determined by that North Carolina State engineering study and is the safe and correct speed limit for that section of the road during those months. We should accept the science on the correct speed limit and not change it based on opinions and speculation. Please make a fact-based decision and not based on unsubstantiated fear of accidents and feelings. We currently do not have any official crosswalks in that area. If and when we get them, perhaps the speed limit will need to be revisited, but until then, that shouldn't be used as a reason. Hopefully, where crosswalks are needed will also be based on a scientific study. Finally, when surveyed in the fall of 2019, almost 80% of over 400 respondents wanted the 45-mile-per-hour speed limit to remain in effect during the off-season. The people have spoken. I hope that the commissioners will listen to the majority of the people and the official North Carolina engineering study. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude our list, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there were a couple that were submitted online. I provided those to you, and they're online if anybody else would like to read them.
Okay. All righty. We're now on number 7 of our agenda. Mr. Hewitt, have you got Ms. Ferguson on the line?
I believe Assistant Town Manager Ferguson is on the line. Christie, are you there?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good
Through
evening.
the National Recreation and Park Association, the U.S. House of Representatives introduced a resolution in 2017-18 for the National Park and Recreation Month. Each year there's a different theme. This year's theme, We Rise Up for Parks and Recreation, underscores the importance of communities rallying around parks and recreation and the benefits that abound secondary to participation. There have been numerous studies since COVID that demonstrate how beneficial park and recreation activities are in terms of physical and mental health benefits. The town recently completed a Parks and Rec Master Plan update in September, and there were numerous projects outlined in that plan that was based on community feedback. And since that time, we've also done some land acquisition that is related to recreation. We look forward to this proclamation serving as the catalyst to propel the community in these vitally important endeavors. If you look at the proclamation, it is for the town to have their own proclamation, which they do suggest that each individual town does. And it reads, whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the town of Holden Beach, and whereas parks and recreation is vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region, and whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors by providing exceptional recreational, cultural, and education activities and volunteer opportunities, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Park and Recreation Month, and whereas grant funding through U.S. Fish and Wildlife, DEQ, and the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund have been instrumental in offsetting the cost of park construction projects to the town, and whereas the town of Holden Beach recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the town of Holden Beach that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in the town of Holden Beach. The suggested motion before the board is a motion to adopt the attached proclamation for National Park and Recreation Month and to initiate sharing on our web presences and on social media outlets.
All right. Any questions or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a proclamation for July to be National Parks and Recreation Month here at Holden Beach, and to instruct our staff to share that on our social media outlets.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous. Thank you. We're on 7A. Mr. Hewitt?
Yes, sir. As part of closing out the fiscal year just ended, we have to make final transfers of collected system development fees from our operations to our capital reserves in order to comply with House Bill 486 and the Fiscal Control Act. Since the town collected water and sewer system development fees in excess of what had been initially forecast, the board has to amend the budget effective 30 June 22 in order to provide for the proper carrying out of those administrative actions. This is strictly a housekeeping and will facilitate correctly accounting for approximately $26,000 in water capacity fees and $115,000 in sewer capacity fees in the reserve accounts.
Okay. Looking for a motion, I guess.
Motion to approve ordinance 2218, amending ordinance 2113, revenues and appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2122.
Need a second.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. We're on number 8. Ms. Ferguson, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, talk to us.
Based on the BOC's direction to pursue grant opportunities around the development of the pier, the staff submitted a pre-application to the Division of Coastal Management for the development of the 50-foot lot for beach access to include a Hatteras ramp and walkway for a total project cost estimate of $63,535. Our pre-app was approved. That application, final application, is due in September, but it would be before the board meets again. We are required to either have it considered at a public meeting or as part of a public hearing, but the staff has decided that having it as a public hearing will demonstrate the town taking the most formal approach to submission requirements. If awarded the grant, the BOC would still have to choose to accept or decline the funds. The suggested motion is to set the public hearing for 5 p.m. on August 16th prior to the start of the regular board meeting and ask the town clerk to advertise accordingly.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to set a public hearing for 5 p.m. on August 16th, right before our regular meeting, and to ask Heather to properly advertise it for us.
Looking for a second? All right. Mr. Murdock made the second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. That's the next monthly meeting, right?
Yes.
Police Chief Dixon, number 9 on the agenda.
Good afternoon. Don't have much to report for June. It's summertime, and we're wide open. So we're still 2 officers short. We've been saying that for a while now, but we're just clicking along, doing what we can. As far as the numbers in the report here go, not much to report on. I will say, moving into July, and I know this isn't the July report, but it was a tropical storm everybody's aware of that developed right off the coast of Georgia, South Carolina over the 4th of July weekend. It dumped a lot of rain on us, kept everything wet, so we didn't have a whole lot of fireworks calls. We definitely didn't have any fires, which was a good thing. So we were glad to see that. But it's just kind of a quick reminder of how quickly these things can show up. So have your plans together. I know we've been saying it all summer. We say it every year, but have your plans together for tropical season. It's here and we're living in it. So that's really all I've got. If you've got any questions on the police report, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Chief, just a reminder, improperly parked vehicle, this includes the auto citations as well as the ones that our officers issue, or only what our officers issue?
Yes, this report is just for the Holden Beach Police Department,
Okay,
so.
So, do we have a count of how many parking violations our vendor issued?
I do not. I'm sure that he provides that count to the town manager, I guess. Yes.
Am I not speaking into that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was specifically asking about how many parking citations exist from our vendor, Auto Connect.
Yes, we do. We do have a count.
Do you know the June number off the top? It just feeds into what the overall number is. No?
I'll have to check.
Okay, maybe next month you could bring it, since I'm assuming it'll always be a month in arrear.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I will caveat that too, with the improperly parked vehicle number that you're looking at, we received 27 calls on that. Now, that could have been officer-initiated calls, or it could have been 911 calls, but we have 27 logged in the system. Doesn't necessarily mean we wrote 27 citations.
Right.
So just to kind of caveat that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any more questions? Chief, we appreciate all that you and your department do for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith, number 10, golf cart.
Yes, sir. I guess you know that everybody's figured out now that the golf carts are one of my areas of focus. Again, as we heard from one of our concerned citizens, that they are not a very well protected vehicle. Golf cart parking and moving vehicle violations have become highly visible, and the increased number of golf carts being used by renters and property owners have, like I said, have increased considerably. In order to judge whether the town its increased communication and police department efforts are moving forward with the safety compliance in mind, what I would like to do is something that we asked for earlier in my tenure, is to get a monthly report on violations. The last time I tasked the police department to do it, this time I'm going to task the town manager with making sure that we get the information every month for the Board of Commissioners as to how many violations on golf cart operation, whether it be parking, which shouldn't be as big an issue now with our parking program underway. Underage drivers, the seat belt infractions is one of the ones that is become just out of control. The child safety seats have also seemed to be totally ignored. And then an unlicensed vehicle, which is, that's people I hope have no sense not to try to drive a regular golf cart. Now, I'm using the word golf cart. Now, I know that our officers like to use low-speed vehicles, which some of these low-speed vehicles now, especially with the lithium batteries, can run 45 miles an hour. My point is, within just a ride from Halstead Drive through the 800 block yesterday, I passed 8 golf carts. Out of the 8 golf carts, I saw 2 seat belts being worn, and they were in the front seat of one of the 8 golf carts. The rest of them had none. I was at the concert Sunday night. There were 8 people on a golf cart, called a low-speed vehicle, and drove right in front of 2 officers in the police truck. And I turned and said, please, somebody put on a seatbelt. It's gotten to the point where, you know, I'm getting calls from our residents. We've heard from one tonight. We want to know as the board if we need to do anything other than what's being done now. And I think enforcement, getting a count as to what is actually happening out there, so we can actually give some kind of idea as how we need to move forward, because it's getting to epidemic proportions. There's, you know, just you can't go up and down the boulevard without seeing one. And again, I mean, I've been told that you can't really see them because they're not a 3-point harness. Well, if I can see them, I feel sure y'all can too. Again, it's something that, you know, I would like some type of, you know, program put together where the first of the week, when we get the newbies in and they've got their new golf carts running around, that we get the word out. I don't want to ruin anybody's vacation. Stop them and just give them a warning. Give them a good talking to, especially the ones that have got their babies in their arms. That's the ones that I'm the most concerned about. So again, I would like to see if I can get an agreement with the board to task David to see if we can get this information coming to us on a monthly basis until we can figure out what we need to do as our next steps.
I'm going to ask the board not to task me with putting together police statistics. I don't have access to their system. If what you're telling me to beat Jeremy up enough to make him do that kind of thing, we can do that. But for it to be a tasker to me to prepare information that's primarily a police department system that I don't have access to. I don't have access to the police system is probably not appropriate, but if you're talking to me, probably need to ask Jeremy.
Jeremy, what's the proper procedure for that, sir?
Trying to find, I'm going to be honest with you, and now I'm probably going to speak from the heart, trying to find the politically appropriate response here, but I'm going to speak from the heart. I don't like it. I think it's a bad idea, and I think it's a bad practice, and there's two reasons why. I agree, my personal opinion, I agree with the golf cart safety issue. I understand where the board's coming from. I understand where the community is coming from. But personally and professionally, I think we're getting into a bad practice if we're giving reports so that the board can determine what enforcement actions are needed. That's the job of the police department, to direct our officers and the enforcement of that. I don't want the board giving us direction on which ordinances and which laws and which direction enforcement should be headed. I think it's a bad practice. I just think it's a bad road to go down. And then the other issue that I have, which is why I think it should be a police issue and not a Board of Commissioners issue, is I think we're headed down a very slippery slope of discrimination. And the town attorney may tell me I'm completely off base on this, but we are an equal opportunity employer, so to speak, with our enforcement. We enforce all laws on all vehicles and all of the occupants of those vehicles. When we write a citation, we write it to John Smith. We don't write it to the vehicle. We don't track data on the vehicle. We write a charge to John Smith or Jane Doe or whatever the situation is. It's not on a specific vehicle. It's not how we enforce laws. And if we begin to target specific vehicles, I'm really afraid we're headed down a road of, targeting and discrimination. I will tell you this, because I looked it up when I saw this on here. There is a lawsuit right now, and it's in litigation, so I don't know where it's going to go. It's Epstein versus the town of Fenway Island, and it's in Delaware. And I wrote down this little quote, but she has filed a lawsuit against her town. And I quote, "The town is interfering with her property rights and constitutionally protected right to travel." And it is literally over this same topic of low-speed vehicles. The town has implemented a bunch of rules and enforcement and different things that are targeted specifically towards low-speed vehicles, and she's filed suit against the town. Will she win? I don't know. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. I think we're headed down a very slippery slope. I understand the issue with golf carts. We do think they're a safety issue, and we are trying to enforce them. But motorcycles are dangerous. We're not in here beating them up every month. Vehicles are dangerous, whether childs are, are in a seatbelt or not. A golf cart or a low-speed vehicle is still a motor vehicle, and we need to treat them the same as every other motor vehicle. We don't need to selectively enforce them, and that's my spill on it. So I'll be quiet. I'll let the board tell me what they want from there.
Okay, first off, I haven't viewed this as we're saying pick on anybody. It's give us information so that we and you can see whether or not the efforts that are being made to communicate, to get messages out there are actually helping. So if we don't know how many citations are happening on these things, particularly like seatbelt infraction and children in laps, we can't tell whether or not all of your efforts are helping or not. And if they aren't helping, if they're not making a difference, then what additional steps could we take as a town to make it better? So I'm not viewing this as we're saying pick on anybody. It's what information can you give us monthly to show that the efforts we make are helping, the efforts you guys make are helping. That was one of the reasons that last year when we were discussing it, it was if you get the message out early in the week, do you see a drop by the end of the week? That you're not, it's all happening on Saturday, Sunday, and maybe Monday. So again, it's not picking on anybody, it's what data can you grab that gives some evidence, yes or no, our programs are making a difference. Because if they're not making a difference, then over the winter we need to think again about what can we do to try to make a difference. So I just want to make that clear. We're not saying pick on anybody. We're not saying target anybody. But if you're gathering data when you stop somebody and you can make a note that this was a golf cart, no seatbelts. Okay, it's a moving violation, no seatbelts, golf cart. We see that they're happening early, like I said. We gave them a warning, but later in the week they're dropping down. Then you've got a successful program. So I'm thinking of it that way. So what can you do to help on that? It's metrics. It's measurement metrics that prove that You're making a difference in your attempts.
I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know how accurate the metrics would even be, because I can't tell you how many times we speak to a driver of a low-speed vehicle and it's not documented. You know, if we see them sitting on the side of the road or in a parking space, or, you know, we pull up and talk to them. I know our officers do that all the time. I've done it myself, so, you know, I could give you a number of citations we wrote, but again, those citations are written to a driver, not to a vehicle. So it's just, it's not the way we enforce laws. It's not the data that we track and maintain.
Jeremy, you've told us several times how you cannot make this happen. I would like for you to try to give us some, get back with us with some ways that you can make this happen. I mean, it is pretty obvious to the people that have contacted me. I don't want to, I was going to read a text that I received, but I don't think it's appropriate. But it's not being, it's what we're doing and what we're seeing is not working. So that's the reason, as Pat was trying to explain, that we want something to look at to see if, well, if we give a couple tickets that first week, they taper off at the end. I mean, I know it's not the norm. I know it's not the normal tracking procedure, but what we're asking you to do is help us help the safety of people. I don't want to wait until someone is killed for us to do a knee-jerk reaction on doing something then. Let's put something in place on the front end to try to curb this so we don't have to do something drastic on the back end. And that's what I'm asking, Jeremy. It's, again, it's relatively personal with me because I've seen a fatality on a golf cart, and that's something I don't want to see on Ocean Boulevard at Holden Beach. And it's just that, help us get something together and see what'll work. I'll work with you guys. We've talked about it before. Just, we want to be part of the solution, Jeremy, and it's not that we're trying to make you do anything that you shouldn't do or do anything to any particular group of people. It's just that we want to try to get our hands around something, because I don't feel like that they're going to be fewer next year. There's going to be more,
Right.
And more. And as they've gotten fancier and different battery propulsions and stuff, we're going to see an increase. And it's, again, if they had fenders, you know, it would be different. And you mentioned motorcycles. Well, that's, you don't see as many motorcycles on Ocean Boulevard as you do golf carts. So
It doesn't make them less dangerous.
Please try to help us out, Jeremy. That's what we're asking, sir.
I understand it. I just, like I said,
Try to figure out a way. I mean, you told us how you couldn't. Now try to figure out a way that we can, please.
Let me quantify, if I can, some of what Chief's trying to tell you. The crash reporting system that we do crash reports on, the data that's collected is provided from NHTSA. So even though every state report is a little different, NHTSA, or the federal government, sets what is tracked. And where I'm headed here is they decide what vehicle types or classifications are used. Those classifications do not include a golf cart or a low-speed vehicle. And we are not allowed to make a change or add any vehicle classifications to that system. That same information has become a standard for records management systems. So the vehicle classifications in the records management system, be it a crash or not, use the same classification or category for vehicles. So anytime we address a vehicle, it's a pickup truck, it's a car, it's a big truck, or it's an other. When there are a few more in there to cover many commercial vehicles, because they really want to track that. But that somewhat ties our hands. Also, Chapter 20 of the North Carolina Motor Vehicle Code has a statewide uniformity clause in it that says these laws apply across the state, and that we, the town, or you, the town, cannot change those laws. They apply across the state. So there's not much we can do in ordinances to make this any safer, except lobby the General Assembly.
Lieutenant, I don't think we want to change any laws. We just, looking at this is if you have to have not a separate system, but a notepad. Just give us some idea. Don't say it has to be documented in the system. Just give us some idea of what's going on. The next thing is, you're talking about the laws and the statutes. Drunk driving, you go to jail. Speeding, you get a ticket. No seat belt, you're supposed to get a ticket. No car seat in the car, you're supposed to get a ticket. So in other words, what I'm saying is we want to see if the enforcement is the issue. And, maybe that will help curb the non-use of the safety equipment in those motor vehicles licensed to drive on the state roads of North Carolina.
Again, I'm saying it's having data, having the metrics to see if our efforts are making a difference. So it's working outside the system to create something to capture information specific to a golf cart infraction. Whether it's you're issuing a warning or a ticket, but you've issued something to them. And to see whether or not things improve as the week goes on, because we have programs that we try to get the word out. And if we don't have any data, we really can't judge, is it a good program making a difference? That's what it's about. So it's what can you do outside of the existing legal system that's in place to tease out the golf cart information that helps us see that, yeah, it does help, or we need to focus on communication, education, something. However, because I have a feeling that we still need to come up with more ways to get the word out. Okay, it is still, from week to week, it varies tremendously.
And I'll tell you my personal opinion. I don't think it's a matter of getting the word out. It's a matter of, I can write 1 million seatbelt tickets. If you don't want to wear your seatbelt, you're not going to wear it. That is your personal choice. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So if I write you a seatbelt ticket on Monday and you decide not to wear it on Tuesday, it's just, my hands are tied on that, But anyway, I do understand what you're asking for, and I understand where your point of view is on it. My concern is, one, I do think it's borderline discriminatory. I am scared to death because I've seen it with Fenwick Island, Delaware. You're welcome to look it up. They're already in a lawsuit. If we get in a lawsuit, I just want it on record. The police department does not discriminate against low-speed vehicles. We write citations to all occupants of all vehicles. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
But it's the adults in those. If the adult wants to not wear a seatbelt and get a ticket, and not wear the seatbelt the next day and get a ticket, that's great. It's the child in the lap that doesn't have a dog in the fight. That's what I'm concerned about.
So we're asking, is there a program brainstorming within your department? Is there some sort of way that you guys can come up with that is not a major inconvenience, that can capture data that helps us and you understand, are our efforts helping? Okay? That's what it's about. It's not about targeting. It's not about discriminating. It's about, can you come up with a straightforward, not inconvenient system that you guys can use to capture enough data that gives us insight into improvement or not?
I can capture the data. I don't know if it will give you any insight into whether it's working or not.
That first time you see it, you capture it.
Yeah.
If you'll do that for us, and if it doesn't pan out to be worth your time and effort, we will certainly discontinue the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
Is that
Jeremy.
what you want to hear?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
Dr.
Thank
Dyer?
you, Jeremy. Thank you, Lieutenant.
So I know that the speed limit issue has been addressed before, but I know that before I was a commissioner, that this issue went on for over a year, debating back and forth the problem. So I know it's a concern. I know there was an engineering report done in 2020, and a lot of people are addressing that. My concern is the amount of residents full-time that has increased since that engineering report. I'm also concerned that that report was done in December of 2020, which was still considered COVID time. We've had an increase in houses being built. We've had an increase in the number of residents that live on the island full-time. I think that area of the island has become very congested, where we changed the speed limit to 45 in the off-season time. I think it's October to March, if I'm correct. When I started vacation here in the 80s, the west end of the island is where we stayed. I live in about the middle part of the island now, and I do live in a section where the speed limit does change. Since I've started working on the island, I usually make my calls in the morning and the evenings on the island, and I would invite anyone to drive on a Tuesday at sunset or sundown in any direction when the sun is glaring in your face with trash cans on the side of the road. If you drive in the morning on Tuesday, there's trash cans on the side of the road, both sides of the road. And to drive 45 miles an hour through that section, if a child darts out that's smaller than the trash can, there's no way you're going to see the child. And with the sun glaring in your eyes, you may not even see him until you hit the child. People walking dogs, I can't even cross at Starfish with my dog without feeling unsafe. 45 usually means 50 to 55, and I don't think a ticket in a 50 to 55 mile an hour zone is very enforceable. I think in most cases that's going to get thrown out. A resident on our street's grandchild got away from them for a second, darted next to a trash can, and was almost hit by a car at the crossing at Starfish. The other thing, people have asked about crosswalks, and I've asked some questions of Tim and of Jeremy about with the upcoming paving, we can't get crosswalks marked unless the speed limit's 35 and below. We've had a lot of residents inquire about these crosswalks. They used to be marked, some of these. They're not marked. I know the one at Starfish, because that's my personal crossing area. At any given Saturday, there's 20 bikes. There's kids back and forth. There's a basketball court at the fire station. There's kids off across that crosswalk. Nobody stops. Nobody sees anybody standing there. Like I said, dogs, children, it's too fast. And with all the construction going on, a truck and a trailer that's loaded down cannot stop. And with distracted drivers, and we're going to add 2 more bike lanes, and it's been mentioned, Jeremy has reported no accidents or incidents. I don't think we should wait till somebody's hit by a car and put in a wheelchair or dead or their child's killed for us to say that the speed limit should go to 45 in the winter. I don't see the positive in increasing the speed limit. I don't think it's safe. It's a residential area now. We don't really have an off-season anymore. I don't see where the population decreases those months anymore. And I just don't see the positives getting to the bridge. I think it's a minute faster is worth somebody losing their life or getting injured. So that's my stand on it. I think Jeremy wanted to add something. Maybe Tim can add something about the crosswalks. I'd appreciate it. You don't have a microphone.
If those of you in the audience cannot hear, just raise your hand and we'll try to make an
As far
adjustment.
as I know, and Jeremy and Frank may know something different, but it's my understanding when I was dealing with the crosswalks that we don't have any approved official crosswalks. They were nullified by DOT, as I understand it. But we did make application, we did go through the process of gathering all the data for crosswalks. We were approved for 4. And this has been some years ago because when the DOT, I brought them to y'all, and when the DOT started talking about expanding and working on the bike path and the other parts of OBW, we were informed they were going to incorporate them into the new, and so it was dropped right there. But unless the criteria has changed, the criteria for crosswalks required 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. That's what all the emails say, and that's the information that they provided to us. I may be wrong. Am I incorrect that crosswalks can be placed without the speed limit being lowered?
No, that's my understanding of it as well.
Because I want there to be discussion, I'm going to move that the speed limit be lowered to 35 miles an hour
All year round.
all year round.
Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
All right, now officially discuss it.
I would like to make the point as well that once you are in a bike lane and you are pedaling along and a substantially sized vehicle goes whipping by you at 50 miles an hour, if you are a lightweight, which would be a younger person, I'm not a lightweight anymore, but you are going to have problems. To me, when the bike lanes go in, we need to go to 35. So the bike lanes are going to go in next year in the first part of the year. We may as well just start the all year round 35 and let people get used to it before we have bike lanes. And I mean, if we don't do it now, I'm going to be back as soon as we have bike lanes screaming that we need to reduce it, and it's not that many months in advance. Also, if we're going to reduce the speed limit, I would ask that the town manager go to DOT again, or whoever it is who's driving it, and let DOT know we have reduced our speed limit, and can they incorporate a couple more official crosswalks getting further west, because then we will meet that 35-mile-an-hour criteria. Try to do it all at once. But again, as somebody who bikes, when I move out onto the road, and once we have those bike lanes, I should not be on the sidewalk anymore. Once I move out onto the road, I'm not going to be happy when those big vehicles go whipping by me at 50 miles an hour. Because 45 means 50, or 55. All you need to do is get past, you don't even have to get to Point West, but definitely past Point West. People are driving fast down there in the winter. They're driving 55. It builds up gradually after the pier. But the further west you get, the faster it is.
Further discussion.
Yes, sir. The speed limit has been 45 in the off-season for as long as I've been here. As previously stated, there have been no issues with that. And I don't anticipate any. Anybody that runs out the side of a trash can, whether 35 or 45 miles an hour, is not going to be pretty. I don't think that like I was one of the citizens said, the fear factor. Well, the fear factor is the same thing with the golf carts. It's, again, we polled the public back in 2019, and 80% of them said no. So I cannot support changing the speed limit signs. Now, after we get the bike lanes in, that might be a different story, but I haven't seen bike lanes yet. So as it is right now, I'm going to vote to leave it as it is right now. That's what the people wanted. That's what the state of North Carolina said was appropriate for the area. And I'm going to leave the ordinance as written.
I'm going to remind you that when they did the survey, bike lanes were not in the near future. Nobody was considering we were going to have bike lanes.
No, they were still riding on the street.
There's not nearly as many riding on the street as there are on the sidewalks, believe me. But once those bike lanes are there, it's going to be expected you ride in the street, and it's going to be a totally different world. So, and again, doing it now, the paving's going to happen next year. We have time to talk to DOT. We've reduced the speed limit. Let us work with them to try to get a few more official crosswalks moving down west, and let our drivers get acclimated to going 35 miles an hour before those bike lanes go in. I voted for it last time before we were talking about bike lanes, so I've been for 35 miles an hour for a couple years now.
I'll weigh in on it briefly. This is Brian. The last person sitting up here that would want to change the speed limit, reduce it after all these years of living here. However, I've been assured that the DOT is going to pave Ocean Boulevard next year. And with the addition of the 2 bike lanes, a future board, maybe even possibly, will have to revisit this subject, and the speed limit will be reduced to 35 just for the pure concern of public safety. If we as a community lose track of public safety over getting somewhere in another minute, then we're going to have bigger fish to fry at some point. I've been assured, I've talked to Tim about the crosswalks. I want to make it crystal clear that we expect that those crosswalks be pursued and, if possible, put in and marked. If we reduce the speed limit, that's a tasker, so to speak. And I've talked to our police chief and lieutenant, all of which want to see this stay 35 miles an hour year round. The last thing I want to see sitting up here or out there or living here is somebody get hurt. And I know that when you got a bicycle 3 or 4 feet away from you in the very near future, when this road is paved, then that's exactly what could happen with, for example, a loaded tractor trailer loaded sheetrock in a hurry and not paying attention. And it's not swerving a little bit. They're going to be right beside a moving vehicle. And it's just going to take one text, and it's going to be ugly. And that could happen anywhere, not just here. But you go to Sunset Beach and you go to Ocean Isle Beach, you do not drive 45 miles an hour on any portion of those islands. Ocean Isle Beach just had the bike lanes put in. For those of you that haven't been over there in a long time that are listening, take a ride over there. Look how good of a job that has been done over there. We're not reinventing the wheel here. And I'm just taking a step forward because I know it's coming in the near future anyway. And Pat's right. Let's all get used to it. I don't think these guys are going to write you, and I'm going to be mad if you do, write you a ticket for going 42 or 43 miles an hour down that boulevard in January. And let's be proponents about this, and let's try to keep people safe, like it or not. And Tim's going to give you an inspections report in a little bit. There's been a ton of development on this island since that survey was taken. And there's a lot of people here a lot of the time. And, you know, we're all lucky, and I'm going to point this out, to sit in this room to have another minute to get from the general store to the West End Gate, if that's where you're going. If you're not going that far, it won't take you that long. Because some people don't anymore. Let's just slow it down a little bit. I'm going to vote to change it and leave it at 35 year-round, because at the advice of the staff and the people in this town that have to enforce it, that see the problems, that's the advice I got. And that's what I'm basing my decision on. I know I'm going to make some people mad. I'm not happy about it myself because I live down there, and it's going to take me a little bit longer to get home. But if I want to drive 45, just like Jeremy said, there's nothing that's gonna stop me from not driving 45. So if you wanna continue to drive 45, only the enforcement of the town can stop you from doing that. So you take it at your own risk, you know? But, with the bike lanes going in, and that's a big chunk of my decision, I think we need to go ahead and just leave it alone. We're used to it now. You can't even drive 35 down that street right now. Try it. You're gonna be behind a bike, you're gonna be behind a golf cart, and it's pretty much that way on into October and November, even when you raise the speed limit. You're gonna get behind somebody looking for a house. You're gonna get behind somebody delivering tent. You're gonna get behind somebody dropping off lawn. You can't do it most of the time anyway. Once in a while, sure, you've got a 45-mile-an-hour street, you can get down through there and you don't have to hit your brakes. But it's rare. It's absolutely rare. I live here. I work here. It's rare that you can drive 45 anyway. So that's where I stand. And I never thought I'd say that.
All right, you guys ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
4-1, Madam Clerk.
I just want to mention that we're not actually changing it today. I'll have to bring back an ordinance next month for the board to pass.
Right. And again, at the same time,
But-
let DOT know we're doing it, so
Oh.
we can do what we can.
Yeah,
Sorry.
3-1, Madam Clerk, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, we are on number 12, Mr. Evans. Inspections report.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody's doing well. Last month was a busy month, just like every month before. I don't know what happened during COVID, but when COVID happened, it seemed to energize the construction industry on Holden Beach. We do know that a lot of folks have been moving here, and we do know that a lot of folks have been building. The report is laid out. I think this is the more simplified report that y'all wanted. You can go through it, you can read it. The bottom line is that you've had a lot of development going on. There was almost 70 zoning applications that were reviewed. There was almost an equal number of CAMA applications reviewed. There were 265 permits that were reviewed. Some of those take quite a bit more planning review to make sure they meet all the requirements of the state, local, and federal guidelines. The total for all the permits that were issued was 265, and of course they had a total value of $4 million in increase to the structures within the town. And then there's a dollar amount what we collected, which we didn't collect, but it's actually in the system. They may come in and get them. Sometimes they come get them right away. Sometimes they wait a month. So that's how much we actually placed in the system to be collected when they pick up the permits, which is a little over 63,000. During that same period, we did 356 inspections. And we run about a 30% turn down rate. Here lately it's been higher. We've got a new inspector that's training, so we're walking around with the books. So we went from 35 to probably about 85% turn down rate. So we're hoping that as the training goes along, that the turn down rate will come down a little better.
We appreciate it.
But anyway, because there's two of us now, it gives us more time for plan review, which gives us more time in the field, which gives us more time to look at the houses, which is basically making the houses safer. That's the good news. The bad news is that we're down a person in our department, which is our admin, and we're trying to, right now we've got someone who's helping us part-time that used to work for us, and she was an instant help, but she's not going to be with us but only for another week. And we are interviewing just as hard as we can to try to find a replacement. But we're hoping the citizens will be a little patient when it comes. It shouldn't affect the plan review. It will affect turnaround times as far as accepting and trying to get the information in and out until we can get that person. So we've got 2 new trainees that'll be on the floor here before long, and we're just trying to do the best we can. The months of July, the latter months of July and August always slow down. I'm assuming it's because all the houses are full of being rented, but it always seems to slow down either from the heat or whatever, but it does slow down. But then it immediately starts picking up after Labor Day, and it reaches its apex sometime around May of the next year. So we do have like a tourist lull every year. It doesn't stop. It keeps going, but it does slow down. That's the gist of the report.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Tim, I understand most of the things. What is the mechanical?
That's HVACs, electrical, and there's both individual where they do change outs, and then there's the mechanical. They're all registered as mechanical, like when they do the HVAC for a brand new house. It counts them. Our system counts each one that we issue.
Okay.
So if you have 5 houses, you're going to have 5 mechanicals unless they've got gas, and then that house will have 2 instead of 1. But our system counts them. It counts the electrical, it counts the mechanical. So every permit that we issue that's required by state, this system counts it. You know that's what we issue.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
So is swimming pool a swimming pool for an already existing
Yeah,
home?
that's right.
Because under new construction, it would just be lumped into all the permits with that?
Right, that's
Okay.
right.
Do you,
Yeah.
I'm sure you keep track every month of how many stop work orders you've had to issue?
Well, it's funny, if you'd asked me that 4 days ago, I wouldn't have had a problem, but since we've got some help with plan review, we've got more time, and I would say we issued 5 last week. And but up until that point, we'd probably only issued 3 that month. We've got a whole lot of, and let me give you some warning, we've got a whole lot of folks who are trying to remodel and repair their homes with unqualified people, and they are carrying these homes to a point where they're almost a loss before we can stop them. We've got at least one right now where we issued a stop work order. The house was closed up and sealed up, so we could not see what was going on the inside. We finally got access to the home. It's been a month or a month and a half, and we've got to send out a notice of violation. That house is a loss, where they went in without permits and removed structural members and elements in the home beyond what can be repaired. Okay. And I warn everyone, and I bet the police department will help me here, do not pay folks up front without a contract, and do not use folks that aren't licensed. That's it. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Go ahead.
Oh, I got the next one too, is that what you're telling me? All right. I believe at the last board meeting, as I understood it, I was tasked to try to prepare an ordinance for the commissioners to review. And I looked at every single peddling ordinance, itinerant merchant ordinance. I looked at stuff from Florida to California. I read and read and read and read and read. I looked at Oak Islands. I looked at Ocean Isles. I looked at Sunset's ordinances. I looked at Pawleys Island. I looked just about everywhere they had a beach. And what I did was I came to the conclusion that we would probably be better off if we looked at our own ordinance and then tried to write an ordinance that would best fit what the town was looking for, instead of trying to lump all these things into, in other words, to try to find out it and bring it into something that's special just for us. I'll be honest with you, if there's 5 lines in here from other jurisdictions, it's only because they look good. We wrote it in-house, that's what I'm trying to say. So, the ordinance 2217 was prepared for consideration and possible approval by the Board of Commissioners. Staff prepared the draft ordinance as directed by the board at its last scheduled meeting. The dates of operations and times were excluded and can be entered if the board so approves the amended section. And the ordinance is so designed to allow only those merchants with established businesses to conduct such businesses remotely on the Strand with specific guidelines, locations, and dates by permit only. And of course, there's a copy of the ordinance. And this, while it does have some few portions of what was existing in our ordinance, it does maintain that no peddling is allowed. You cannot peddle in the town of Holden Beach. Open vending is not allowed. What the ordinance did was it basically states, and I can go through it if y'all want me to line by line. Does y'all want me to go through it? It basically states that unless you have 4 walls and you can meet the conditions for having the cart, that you won't be allowed to have off-premise sales. It basically says that each year we will offer off-premise sales to established businesses by permit only, and then with that permit you will be able to get permits for 5 push carts. So you'll get an off-premise permit, and then you'll have the capability of buying permits for push carts at a maximum of 5. And it's only those businesses that are established and allowed under the permitted uses. So that's what it says. It has the appeals process if you get denied. It has everything that a good quality ordinance would have. The only thing it don't have is the times and dates, if y'all choose to approve it, that would allow for operations and the dollar amount for the liability insurance that the carts need to carry, or the businesses need to carry to protect the town.
Time and the date should be pretty much, I would say, Memorial Day to Labor Day. The times of operation, I think when the company came and talked to us, they said it would be, I think, from 11 to 3, or 11 to 4, Pat, I can't remember the exact numbers.
I think what they said was that the hours that they've been granted on other beaches are typically longer than they actually spend on the island, on the Strand. They have a set of hours, but they generally are out there a bit later, off a bit earlier, but there's leeway either way in case they have a particularly busy day, like a 4th of July or something. And I think that it was actually, they generally run from about Easter until into the fall. I don't see a problem linking it to when we have paid parking and letting it happen from April till the end of October. I mean, to me, they're not, I don't think that an operator is going to put anything out there if it doesn't make business sense to them. So if weather's bad, or if in April, May, they only want to be out there on weekends, but if you give them the option, then they can do their business when it's profitable for them. So I think the question is, do we want to let it go from April 1st to October 31st? Do you want to make it May 1st till October 31st? We have a lot of people here, and
He's got April through November, so you could do April 1st and November 1st.
Yeah.
Because you want to include the last festival.
Well, you could. I just didn't put the dates in there. I was recommending April through November,
Yeah.
but I just didn't put the dates in there.
But don't we have a representative from the
Yeah.
company that can maybe give us some insight?
Yeah, right here.
Is
You
that-
need to amend the rule.
This is out of order,
Sorry.
but you can vote if you want to. If you want to waive that, amend.
can we all agree that the representative from Sunset, sorry, Mr. Mayor, could you lead that? Yes.
Spank her down.
Sorry.
Um, Without objection from the commissioners, we're going to allow the gentleman to speak. Is that okay?
Yes,
sir. Yes.
Anybody object?
No.
Madam Clerk, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Give us your name and who you're affiliated with.
Drew Sellers, Sunset Slush Classic Italian Ice. We usually, Easter is when we like to start, because those 2 weeks we have some visitors who would expect us to be out there. Up through, here, it's a good point about the festival, through October would be good. Time of day, usually we usually get out at 11, but sometimes 10 o'clock, it gives us, if we're out there 15 minutes before, gives us time, because, the busy 4th of July week, it's a little bit different. And then the time to stop, there's been days in the past week where it's rained. We wouldn't get out till 1 o'clock, and we'd be done, 4 or 5 o'clock. So I'd say somewhere around 6, 7 o'clock, if that's something you're looking at. But you were correct, where we're usually done, 3 o'clock. But some days it's a little different depending on the weather and the traffic. If you have any other questions, I'll gladly.
10 to 6 work?
Yeah, I think that's great.
So you have to be careful, because the way I wrote that is the times that you can't operate, not the times you can. So you have to be careful when you're putting the time in there. That's what it says, is that no sales of the merchandise shall be permitted between the hours.
Six
Yeah, so you got to.
6 PM to 10 a.m.
6 PM to 10 AM.
There you go.
And that's the Easter weekend, which is,
It varies.
Varies from year to year.
Yeah, because if you say April, isn't it
Just
very-
do, you're not going to go out there unless there's people, and you're not going to go out there unless the weather's, I would just say April 1st,
Yeah,
November 30th.
It's rare that Easter is in March.
Very
It happens, it's very rare, but April 1st,
April 1st? Through November 1st?
Yeah.
October 31st.
October 31st.
But that puts you close to December, I don't.
October.
I'd say November 1st. Well, if the festival is,
it's always the
the
last
Sunday
full
might be
week.
on the 1st. if the
It's the
festival
last
is
full
on-
weekend usually, isn't it? Last full
October.
weekend of October, so it would be over.
Okay. And then, of course, you've got the hours that they have to have their equipment up and gone, so, because they could stage, before they start to sell, so you can make that the same time, and then they won't be out there, they won't be doing anything. In other words, if they've got something in the town that, it needs to be back at their location, back in storage and not out. So, that's that next set of times there.
I just want to clarify that
What are the days of operation?
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah, every day.
I just want to clarify on the fee, that's anywhere between 1 and 5 carts, that's the fee? Or is that-
The way the fee is set up now, this is also to change the fee schedule, but the actual permit to the business is $250. They're entitled to one. And then they can get up to 5 push carts. And the fee for the off-premise permit is $250, and then the fee for the push carts is $1,000 a cart,
Each cart,
each cart.
that's what I want to clarify.
And I think that's in line with what we discussed.
So if there's 5 carts, it's 5,000.
correct.
Right,
Yeah?
Yeah.
that's the way I read it, I just want to make sure.
That's
Well,
what-
again, because I was looking at other beaches and it's
Much less than that.
much less than that. I was thinking that it might be you just pay the 1,000 and you can have up to 5 carts, but okay, that's per cart.
Well, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, I know.
So for point of clarification, could the text in the push cart line be changed to read per push cart, maximum of 5 off-premises sales permit issued?
I mean, if we
Just
need
so
to
it's
clarify,
very clear.
I'd struggle with that, how to put that in there. I wrote it about 4 different ways, and if
But
somebody's
the
got a better
intent
way.
is to charge $1,000 for
Per.
each push cart.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's the way I read it, I just wanted to make sure.
And that was not the way I read
That was
it.
not
So,
the way-
It's got to be clarified.
So tell me how you want me to clarify it.
I don't know, that's.
I think what the town manager said, per push cart, comma, maximum of 5 per OPSP issued. So the per push cart will be the number 1,000.
Okay.
And general liability insurance, the number is,
I don't know how you can have it.
again, I know other islands have a number. I didn't focus on it that much, so I can't.
Yeah, the one that I focused on, there was one for $500,000, I believe. Yeah. And there was one that was more than that. Kind of thinking the attorney would help us with that one.
Minimum general liability policy on, like, anybody that works, that I deal with is $500,000, that's typical.
Yeah. They're saying that they're usually required to do $1 million. So,
Then that would be a liability umbrella type deal.
yeah, we would be named on the policy, yeah.
That's typical, that's typical.
We have to have those NLCs.
Has the town attorney had any reservations about any of this? No? I was actually not assuming we were going to try to drive an ordinance to completion today. I didn't think we'd get there. I thought we'd get something that we would bring to next meeting for finalization. So I guess it's up to what the driver of this process wants to do here, what motion wants to be made.
Before there's a motion entertained, I would encourage anyone that so chooses to put forth a motion to include that it's not immediately in effect until the town attorney has read it in its completion form and also date certain that it goes into effect. And for those that are listening in the room and elsewhere, please make sure there's no misunderstanding that this is consideration to be given to anyone that qualifies, not this particular business that's here tonight. Okay?
So I make a motion to accept the ordinance 2217 with the corrections that we made tonight. And the fee schedule?
I think I understood the mayor to say that that should still be contingent on having the town attorney read it in its entirety, which by my interpretation would mean we bring it for a final vote next month. If I interpret having the town attorney do a final read in its entirety.
Depends on the motion, the way it's made, yeah.
Yeah. But that was your recommendation.
My recommendation is not to let it go into effect until the town attorney has approved it with a date certain.
That's my understanding.
All right. Bring it back.
So we can make the motion to accept ordinance 2217 with the corrections with review by the town attorney and not to be in effect until you have a chance to review that, which, do we need to vote on that date right now?
Whatever you're going to send to the town attorney for approval, you should have it ready for his final review. So whatever your date is, I would encourage you to consider putting it in what you give the town attorney for consideration.
By August 1st?
Whatever your motion is.
Okay, so I make the motion to accept ordinance 2217 with the changes for the time and the dates as reviewed by the attorney and then to go into effect August the 1st, 2022.
Is there a second?
I guess it gives me a little bit of a communication question, that if there is an issue, how is this communicated in a public manner? If the town attorney sees something wrong, that he says, I can't approve this the way it is.
Then it doesn't go into effect
Right.
until,
I'm simply asking, is it better to simply have it in effect and put next meeting's date and to bring it back onto the floor next meeting, okay? Town attorney has the time to do it. He passes something that he blesses. It's in open session, so if he has a reservation, it can be raised at the open session. That's another way of doing it.
And that'll be August 16th, is the date of our next meeting.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. If he has no reservations, it'll go into effect August 1st. If he has reservations, he's going to say it's not going into effect. So I view it as, the question is, do you want to bring it up at another public meeting for the public to make any comments that they want to?
I'm okay with it
This would
if
be the
Rick's
third
okay
meeting.
with it. I don't see any reason to
Push it back?
push it back. If you have a problem with it, Rick, you're gonna say, then it's gonna go down the road.
I've got a problem, I'll send it back.
If you don't have a problem with it, then I'm fine with August 1st.
Okay, I'm fine with August 1st.
The only variables you got are
And liability insurance.
So I'll
Right.
second.
okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Everybody understand the motion? Madam Clerk, you got it?
Yes, but well, the first motion that you made, you included the fee schedule, the last motion you didn't, so you just want to vote on that separate, or is that? It's been changed so many times, but the last one you made did not include the fee schedule, so that could be voted separate. if that's
Okay.
what you guys want.
We can vote on it separate and make it easier. That's fine. So the motion is for the ordinance 2217 with the changes to be effective after review of the attorney for August the 1st. And she
Everybody
seconded
got
it.
it? We've got a motion made and seconded. Discussions happened. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Now you want to make a motion about your fee schedule?
Right, so the motion, the second motion would be, the next motion would be to accept the fee schedule with the changes for the permits and the charges for the cart.
Second?
All right, discussion?
Just, Tim you captured what the change had to be for that per card?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay,
Dave's got it.
okay.
Madam Clerk, have you got it?
Yes, sir. I got it sitting right next to
Everybody in the room got it? All right, we all got it. Let's see here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. I would like to be out of order for just a minute and say to those that may possibly benefit in having the ability to deliver Italian ice on the beach, it would be nice to have some refreshment at the next meeting with it. For everybody, so it would be a payoff. All right, let's go to number 14. Mr. Evans.
I believe at the last meeting, we were showing these, and now I've got, are you gonna put that up?
I'll try it.
Okay. The mayor's got a lot of faith in you there. But I was asked about, and at the meeting, Frank, and we didn't get a chance to get together, but we did go through these and determine, or I did, and Rhonda went through, and we determined exactly how many parking places were at the marsh streets. because we were asked to do that. Let me go ahead and tell you that anywhere the wetlands delineated, we got an email from NCDEQ that says that if they're not already, if they're pervious now, and they're in the wetlands, you cannot park there. So we actually went through and marked each of these streets, and by doing so, we determined that sailfish has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there's 9 total on sailfish. They are marked. These are the regular parking places for regular vehicles. And that's sailfish.
Where are they located?
We mark them in yellow. Those are the only areas where you can actually park. And you can see them.
Most of them are at the end of the road.
Yeah. And just so everybody will have, this is actually sailfish. That's the area at the end. There is 4 in the middle right here and 4 right here. So there's 1 down there, 4 somewhere in the middle, and 4 right there. And those are the only areas that we can allow for folks to park on sailfish. We got 4 parking spots on sand docks. There's 3 up here. Excuse me. There's 2 down here and 2 here. There's 2 at the very end and 2 right there. That's the only places that are legal to park. So the public can see it. There's 2 here, this end, and 2 on this end. Huh? Yeah, they're for full-size homes. It's just where it's marked in here.
Madam Clerk, you picking this up?
The sound, it'd probably be better if there was a mic.
We tried to keep them out of it, Frank. We tried to measure where they were outside of that 40-foot setback. We knew about it because we talked to the chief, because we had some questions about that, or at least Rhonda did. There's no parking allowed within the 30-foot buffer, and as you can see, there's none allowed on Greensboro Street. Did I skip one? Oh, Scotch Bonnet. Is it this one here? Scotch Bonnet has none, so there's no parking on Scotch Bonnet. And we have a definite email that says that unless, if it's pervious now and it's in the wetlands, you can't park on it.
And swordfish?
Swordfish. Find it. Dolphin. Swordfish has none.
Tim, there's been some question on Scotch Bonnet down where the town owns the land, where the spills were put there's concrete blocks there. And there's been people that have wanted to park there and asked about that location, because there's concrete blocks next to the marsh. Is that considered marsh, or is that part of the town land?
That you're talking about with
Down about 149, 150, 151.
yeah, that's, if it's not marked on this map, the blocks wouldn't have determined, we had it delineated, so we would have picked it up as being a parking space if it was there, available at Scotch Bonnet.
So that area by the concrete blocks is legally parking now, or?
Well, I don't know. I'm just, in other words, what I'm saying is that if it was in part of the study, if it was part of the study and doesn't show up
They didn't
as,
put any flags up except on the outside of this, on the inside.
yeah, I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, I just know there's neighbors that have had events there that have wanted to park there.
Yeah, Scotch Bonnet has no parking. You can, the actual wetlands are delineated right up next to the road. Yeah. So,
What is considered the wetlands? Any time that water covers it is considered wetlands, or just?
yeah, it's delineated as such. There's a specific definition, but there are 3 to 4 different zones, and and if they fall within any of those buffers, then it's going to be considered wetlands. And then there's some criteria that create that, such as vegetation, the high water mark and that kind of stuff. But these studies are accurate. We've actually looked at them. We've actually ground truthed them, looked at them, been back out there. We've talked to the folks that did it, and we've looked at it and discussed it with NCDEQ. So they are accurate. Okay. 800 block? Yeah. Go ahead. Well, the 800 block, I was handed these. I'm assuming that the board wanted to have some discussion. I'm not sure where you want to go. The information that I have shows where we can place bulkheads, and looks like Shane did a pretty good job of determining how many parking places we could have and how they needed to be placed on the property. So if you've got any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. The high water mark is somewhat away from where the bulkhead is, out away from those areas. The bulkhead would be there to protect the properties. It won't have any environmental impact based on the delineation that we had done because of where those areas are. It's just, it's strange, like at Greensboro Street and those other areas, that the high water mark's way out there, and then the wetlands come in because of the vegetation and the location of fauna. Yeah.
I want to make sure that the board is aware of the fact that this layout here there has been no work done as to seeing if that can actually be permitted. We just laid out, or the engineer just laid out some spaces. There's been no transportation analysis or coordination on whether or not that particular layout can be permitted. We don't know if this can be permitted here because of the DOT requirement to configure any type of parking there in a lot, that you can't have all of those spaces just backing out in the road. We don't know that yet. So this is somewhat subjective and has not undergone any permitting review.
Where's the restroom facility?
Well, we were asked to delineate wetlands and potential bulkhead locations. And that's what we provided. We weren't asked to outlay.
We've made no
No decision on
decisions on these. How many spaces is hypothesized as the maximum? Because that's what that'll be.
Well, it looks like that Shane, I'm just kind of guessing, but it looks like about 24 spaces. The one on the end, I'm assuming it's a handicap spot, and it would have to be van accessible. So it's actually one, delineated at two, but it looks like it's actually one. And there may be some more of those in there, but it looks like you might be able to get 24. I think that what's important is that when we looked at it, if we bulkhead it, there's possibility, and I think this needs to be looked at more, and not because of, I think it's great what he's done, but we may be able to open up an access in the middle and make areas for golf cart parking there as well. There are a few areas there that once we put in the bulkheads that may be beyond those parking spaces that's not feasible for a car to get to, but we may be able to, I would like to look at it a little bit more as far as fully utilizing it. Some of that space needs to be for maybe other amenities that we might want to put there to support where the parking is going. But I think we need to look at it a little bit more. I think the most important thing is the town really needs to do what a lot of other landowners do, and that is to try to protect the property and do what's allowed under the law, which would be to put up a bulkhead so you have a more finite idea of what you've got and what you're working with there. And when that happens is, it's totally up to y'all, but it should be really considered as a must, I would think, from a planner standpoint, so that we know what we can do with the land. And the same thing applies in the 700 area there, to those that small section right there where there's a few parking places there as well that we have discussed in the past. And these showed up. I did a presentation a couple years ago in one of the parking committees, and prior to that, and they've showed up a few times with these parking places in them over the years. But whether you put parking there, whether you do anything there, I think it's important that we consider exercising our right to bulkhead those as an important factor for the future.
I'm in complete agreement with bulkheading the 800 block to do exactly what Mr. Evans says, just to preserve the property. I am happy that I directed the wetlands to be delineated because I know that those are wetlands, and I've seen cars from one end of just about all those streets to the other in the wetlands, and I'm glad to see that there's not much, if any, on there at all. Looking at the maps, and I know people listening can't see them, but there's only just like a couple at the end of a couple streets. Whether we utilize those or not, I think might ought to have some input of the residents of the street, and the proximity to an access. If residents of Sailfish, for instance, wanted to use the 2 or 3 parking spaces in the middle, I could never see that for paid parking or anything like that, but it could be set aside for them to use, maybe, possibly, if they wanted to. But I say kudos to protecting the wetlands on those streets and just leaving them be. The water comes up to just about every one of them on some of these high tides, and it's just not a parking lot. And I do think the town, though, you know, the waters could and is in some places eroding the streets, the infrastructure of the town. So I don't know what could be. I've seen at Sunset in a few places where the water actually comes up to the pavement, that they've put some protection there, riprap, that type of thing.
Yeah, there's some things that CAMA will allow you to put in there.
Definitely not saying a bulkhead, but
yeah.
You don't want your street, you know, water comes up to the edge of your road every high tide, and it takes away a little sand with it, so next thing you're gonna be losing some of the road. So as far as bulkheading the properties that make practical sense, I was even looking at the Fit Trail today driving down the road. I mean, the water's getting close in a lot of places. I mean, it's getting tight in a lot of places to the Fit Trail, and the only way to protect those little pieces of recreation is to bulkhead those as well. So it's the water's coming up and up. We have to look at that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Any piece of land that the town has that they want to utilize or use, just like the small parks that we had at the end of those streets, we bulkheaded them. And if you go down there, you'll see how much that has improved those areas just by bulkheading. And people seem to use them more. They seem to like almost like it makes them more comfortable to be there where those bulkheads are.
Yeah, I don't know if we can start getting some estimates on let it out. I don't know.
We can say it's a priority, but that it's a priority when there's money.
Correct.
Is what it comes down to.
All right, what's your pleasure? Are we through with this? All right, as Paul Harvey says, page 2.
I just want to know, Heather, did you get that?
Number 15 on our agenda. Madam Clerk.
At the May board meeting, the board instructed staff to move forward with the process to close a portion of Carolina Avenue between Quinton and Jordan. The survey for the area has been completed, so we added the description to the draft resolution that we presented to you guys at the May meeting. We're proposing that the required public hearing be held at the September 20th meeting that allows staff time to advertise the public hearing for the 4 successive weeks, post the property, and mail any required notices. We attached the summary of the process that you guys have already seen, so there's a suggested motion in the packets for you, if you'd like to move forward.
Is there a motion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 22-17 to close Carolina Avenue and for Heather to schedule a public hearing for September the 20th at 5 o'clock p.m.
Is that 2207,
Yes,
not 17?
07.
Resolution 2207. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, anyone? It's unanimous, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
We're on number 16, Town Manager Hewitt.
Yes, sir. The responses to the request for qualifications for the redevelopment, et cetera, for the pier properties in Block Q, we only had one response for a comprehensive engineering and architectural services. McGill & Associates was the only firm that submitted a response. That advertisement was made through the paper and to those engineering and architectural firms that had responded previously to the Parks and Rec Master Plan RFQ. So if y'all want to move forward, however you may choose to do so, we would need to come back with a contract proposal for your consideration and approval, should you desire to select McGill & Associates.
We're not required to resubmit for bids since we just got one.
It's the RFQ process bases it on qualifications.
Okay. All right, what's your pleasure?
I for one,
Go ahead.
I don't like one egg in a basket. I don't know how far we have to reach, but I know like some stormwater projects on Curie Beach and different things. I mean, firms were as far away as Charlotte, North Carolina, and Raleigh and places like that. I'd just like to see more than one company, firm weigh in on this, so I say to put it back out again. I don't know how to get it back out farther, or if we'll get a different response, but that's my opinion.
I'm going to have to agree with Brian. There's got to be more than one company available to do this type of work. If at this point in time, we don't have it in our budget right now to move forward with any of it, but having just one company give us a quote or even their qualifications is not acceptable in my opinion. We need to have at least one more, if not two. And, you know, there might be the need to actually, instead of just put it out and see who responds, possibly go out and search and try to find somebody to respond. But just having one, you know, person come by, one group come back in with the qualifications is not comfortable to me to move forward.
I'd like to say that the company does enjoy a good reputation in the area and have done a lot of work in the area. So I don't think that's the question, it's just a matter of business. Ms. Pat?
I agree. I'd like to see it out there again and some reach out possibly to a couple of companies that have done similar work in this area. and
Okay,
see-
y'all are gonna have to tell me who you have in mind so I can specifically solicit them. So I need the names of those companies that you want me to directly solicit.
No problem.
Yeah.
I don't have it on paper, but I'll get you some.
I would think that would be something that you could probably research for us.
Well, I mean, I don't know what Brian knows, and I don't know what you know.
Well, I've been told by you to keep my nose where it belongs, so.
One-
I'm saying, you probably gotta start doing your job
I
out
would-
there.
But if you're more informed than I am, I
I'll
certainly
fight
welcome
me.
the insight.
I will clearly say that the firm that did the Oak Island pier property, I think would be somebody to reach out to.
Absolutely.
And I think that's
You guys hadn't,
Moffett and Nichols and Moffett, or whatever. I've read their stuff.
you guys
I
hadn't
think that's
taken a
what it
walk
is.
on that 4-year-old brand-new pier up there, it'd be worth the trip.
It was paid for with grant money. So
Not all, but a lot of grant.
a lot of it, yes.
Okay.
It's a beautiful facility.
And that was a total rebuild, but Brian will give you others, but I had a question because I looked at the RFQs, and the block Q, it talks about development of a site-specific plan containing at a minimum following design elements, and it includes public restrooms, and I don't remember us coming to a decision to move the public restrooms to block Q.
I put that in there.
I-
That was my initiative to
Okay.
put that in there because there are issues with the
I-
Jordan Boulevard
I
Pavilion.
understand that, but this board did not make a decision to do anything on Block Q other than boat and trailer parking and paid parking. And so this is the kind of thing that I think the board needs to agree with what they're going to start with before they start with it.
Well, those, of course, would be subject to any contract considerations that you would want developed. What we try to do is broadcast a wide a net as possible. I was given instructions to put a RFQ out. That's to buy the work product that we put out there. I thought it was good to put in there.
The other thing.
I'm sure it's going to come out during the public, the public forum is the need for that, and the fact that those existing bathrooms up there, we're not going to be able to make any improvements to them.
Yeah, you can't, the bathrooms are actually sitting in the DOT easement, and one portion of them are actually sitting on somebody else's private property, the corner is. Depending on approval from DOT, there is some legal ground whereby it would be hard for me to issue a permit to ourselves to place a structure inside of the DOT easement. I'm not even sure we would want to do that.
Well,
I
in
mean, spend
addition-
taxpayers' funds on somebody else's property.
That's a federal highway, and there's Homeland Security issues involved in structures within the right of way.
All I'm saying is, these are the discussions we need to have and understand before something is done, like put it in the plan.
Well,
But-
that's true, Pat, but my direction from the board was to issue an RFQ ASAP, and this was the product that was put out. Now, if the issue is dissatisfaction with the RFQ, we're doing what the best that we know how to do here. But that was vetted with the planning director.
Yeah, it was an issue when I got here. We were actually working with the NCDOI to count footsteps from the pavilion to our restroom. And I can tell you, we got the benefit of the doubt at the end of those footsteps about the distance from the pavilion to our handicap facilities for bathrooms there. And maybe I'm partly at fault because when it was all being talked about, and me and David had numerous discussions, and Christie as well, it was me that said that agreed and thought that it was the best interest of the town to try to move those bathrooms closer to both of those facilities as we could possibly get, with a more direct access.
Y'all are gonna have approval on the site-specific, the elements at some point in time during the charrettes that are envisioned to take place. There's gonna be a list of things that the public is gonna wanna put in there. This is a starter kit for obtaining professional services.
Okay, another thing I noted, I think each of them does have to have, as part of the project description, something in there about meeting ADA, ABA compliance. It's just something that I really think that specifically should be mentioned. And again, I know you got it together fast, but it's not specifically mentioned in either of these.
Well, I mean, those are design build requirements that are, part and parcel of the building code, and, those are public facilities that those accommodations have to be made.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to build a new bathroom in public facilities without having to meet the ADA requirements. You're not even going to get out of the the plan and review phase.
It's not even bathrooms, it's going to be other elements in the pier property, it's going to be certain elements in the parking lot in terms of handicap parking requirements, so it's
Well,
not just about restrooms.
I don't know who's more, I keep hearing these things, but I don't know who's more qualified than I am when it comes to handicap. I'm a level 3 building official who's required to know that information, and I can tell you that you won't get a permit regardless of what's in the RFQ or in your plans, and Brian knows this too, until it's approved and vetted through those reviews. So.
But my thoughts are, if staff has already put together some design plans for these areas, it would be nice to have them shared with the board.
We haven't put together anything but some rudimentary sketches, I think, of a parking plan for the Block Q properties about 2 years ago that are so rudimentary and hypothetical that they're the only thing valid about them is the perimeter survey. The the pier properties, the report that was done up there, those are the only staff elements that would be done that I'm aware of. I mean, that was the whole rationale behind preparing a request for qualifications for engineering services for both of those properties, was have a professional engineer to come in and do the design on them. They're public facilities. Tim has said time and time again, he can't do design work and inspection too. So, I mean, have you got anything?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's going. The parking plan that was used was one that was developed, I want to say, I developed it sometime in 2017, and then it was brought back out there in the parking committee. I think one of the commissioners took it with them. But as far as designing any specific elements, we haven't done any of that at all. The planning department has made comments about what we felt would be good fits, for some of this stuff. But outside of that, we're not going to design it. We can't. I can't be the design person and inspect. It's too big a conflict of interest. Can't do that.
Where we going?
We're gonna get some names, and we're gonna put it back out.
All right.
And along with getting the names of the people that can do this, I think we need to keep in mind that the grants that are available, that I went to that Economic Development Commission meeting back during the summer. A lot of the people that will allow us to, or will offer us the grants, want to be in on the planning stages of this as much as anything else. So just that little side note.
I believe one of the qualifications that we've asked for is evidence and experience with grants, on procuring grants and the grants administration too.
Thank you, David. Good.
All right, we ready to move to the next item? Mr. Hill, are we through? Are we okay to move on, Mr. Hill?
Yes, sir.
All right. Number 17, Ms. Pat?
Okay, post and rope. When we approved post and rope a number of years ago, it was mentioned, should we make some specifications about what we mean, and everybody said, no, we shouldn't have to go to that level. And unfortunately, I think over the past 5 years, we've seen enough instances of things happening that aren't really post and rope and that actually cause both the police department and the planning and inspections department additional work and agonizing, that I think we are probably best to do a better job of defining what we mean by post and rope. We actually discussed this back in January when we decided to leave post and rope in place, that it would probably behoove us to come back in the near future with some better definitions. And I kind of took it on myself in discussion with some of the departments to do a lot of reading. Like Tim says, you start reading things from all across the country to try to come up with some ideas of what directions we might take. So I've put together 3 pages. I am not proposing, I don't have an ordinance here, I'm not proposing we rush ahead and try to force fit something. I'd like to do it right the first time, and if it takes us a few months, it takes us a few months. But one of the things I saw that looked like a very sensible way of approaching it was, and it was a California city that actually segmented the right-of-way of what you could do in the first 3 feet, what you could do in the next 3 feet, and then what you could do after that. And I was looking at what we have, and I was thinking, okay, do we need to take that first 10 feet of right-of-way and allow post and rope at some designated distance from the roadway, and then only have low landscape there, and then in the next segment out to 10 feet you have more allowed, so that the post and rope is far enough off the street so that it's not causing difficulties for people turning a corner or somebody running into it, but it's still close enough to the road that it achieves what our owners want, which is it discourages people from leaving their vehicles parking on their landscape. Even if it's only grass, it's landscape. So, you know, I said there's a lot of things that need to be discussed. What do we say is a post? Because a post is not these metal spikes that we're seeing some people drive into the ground. A post is not a little stake with some twine around it. A post has to be visible. And I've had input from the police department that they think that posts that are higher than 2 feet to 3 feet are more visible. What do you do to make them more visible at night? So should we have a mandate of they either need to be 4x4s or 6x6s? Or you have between a 4 to 6 inch diameter, so people want to do square versus round, you know, fine. We have to have rope. You can't have wire. You can't put string or twine up and say that's visible rope. Chains are not rope, so what do we mean by rope? The big thing to me is, what distance do you want those posts put in the ground? Is 3 feet a good distance? Do we need a different distance in the first 40 feet near an intersection where we've had the concern about fire trucks and things making that corner? Do we need reflectors for night visibility? What's our landscape height? So all of these things need to be worked out, and I actually believe one of the best ways to proceed is for a couple commissioners to get with a representative from the police department and planning and inspections and work through what everybody thinks is the best thing to put together an ordinance to bring to the community. Or there's got to be a special meeting for us commissioners to hammer this out the same way we did parking, you know, in a couple-hour meeting to do it. Because, as I said, looking at everything, there's a lot of variables to consider, there's a lot of examples out there. And I think we want something that owners don't feel uncomfortable when they put something out, am I doing this right? Unless, of course, we want to make planning and inspections responsible for giving a post and rope permit, and I'm sure that, we'd prefer not to do that. So I would actually propose we either pick to have a special meeting as the board with the police department and plannings and inspections with us to hammer out everything at a meeting, or have a couple commissioners set up some meetings with the police department and the planning and inspections and try to put together what we think is the best first proposal.
And I'm going to agree with both of those. And I know however, I think for the sake of time, I think I'll be more happy to volunteer and work with him and work with the chief or Lieutenant Dilworth and us as a group. I would like another commissioner to be on board also. We can have two without it being a formal meeting and answer a lot of these questions or get some ideas to how we want to proceed, and then come back to the board and have a special meeting to discuss those findings. So I think there needs to be a combination there, Pat, in my opinion. Instead of us sitting here hashing it out, I think that we could do it, be a little more streamlined that way.
Can I interject something to that point?
Certainly, David.
Before y'all go down a rabbit hole on all these specifics and organizing a committee of the board, which would be a public body and have to go through the formal meeting protocols, I don't recall if we ever asked our insurance provider if there was an assumptive liability by allowing this kind of thing.
I can tell you that other towns I have found that have this kind of, that have certain rules, they actually do discuss that the liability has to be accepted by the owner if they put things in the right of way. And that is actually written into their ordinance.
Okay, but I'm just saying that the town of Holden Beach has not asked the League of Municipalities that question, whereby we got an opinion from them that absolves the town of that. I'm not aware of it. I haven't done it. Others may have done it before me, but I'm not aware of it. I'd like to be able to provide y'all with that information.
Well, it's been on the books for 4 or 5 years, so I don't disagree with you.
I'm just saying that it dawns on me that I don't believe that we did it then, that maybe we got down into details before we asked the strategic question. But I'll be glad to do that.
Okay.
Wasn't there a mention with paid parking, that the need for post and ropes in the right-of-way would not?
No. No, because post and rope also is used by owners to protect from vendors and vehicles that are not providing service at their house but choose to park in front of their house. It's hoped that if we can move away from right-of-way parking completely, that more people will feel comfortable not having post and rope. But I think you're always going to have people who are going to want to have it. Because it's not just about parking.
I use mine to keep the kids out of the yard. They'll pull right up in the yard, don't think twice about it.
Some people are using post and rope to keep people from illegally pulling into their yard to park. I mean, just because they're not there. It's the same as when you're seeing people, what I consider to be post and roping their driveways. It's to keep people from coming and parking in their driveway.
But once they're out of the right-of-way, wouldn't that be trespassing?
Theoretically. But again, I'm just saying, post and rope is being used by people for different reasons, not just about parking. Not just about parking in the right-of-way. by people who are coming to use the beach.
I wasn't here when this post and rope was put into effect. I can't imagine that discussion. What I could tell you, like on a new house or something like that, if we're outside 1 inch of that property line with a timber on a driveway or anything, and it's on a survey, then we're not gonna get a CO. So I don't know how it was started. I've heard stories, but it's all over the island now, so I don't know how you fix it. I don't have a suggestion on how to fix it. What I would like to see, if it's gonna remain, is a little consistency. Instead of rebar being driven in the ground where some little kid on a bicycle is gonna wreck and land on it, and it could kill him. And it's all kind of stuff being used out there. All you gotta do is go ride the streets. I'm not saying take it away. I don't know how, if you could put it on your property line, you can do anything you want. That's your right as a property owner, but when you get in a street right away, I guess it was an enforcement issue that said, okay, well, somebody's parking in my yard, and I don't want to park in there when it's truly not their yard. But I don't know how that people don't understand that. But I'm just saying, if it's gonna stay, which it looks like it's never gonna go away, that we should standardize the distance to the asphalt, or I don't know how you would do it, but man, some of it's on the edge of the pavement.
Cemented in the
Some of it's
ground.
dangerous.
So,
So that's all I think they're trying to get the point across, that just some of it's just not safe. So
well, again,
I don't know what to do with that.
I think that's what this is about. It's trying to standardize it, and if we can, avoid having Planning and Inspections Department have to issue permits for someone to put in post and rope. That's not where we want to go. And however we do this, I don't want our owners to feel if they want to plant a shrub, they need to get a new survey done to understand exactly where 5 feet or 6 feet or the right-of-way ends, because it's not consistent. So it's trying to give some direction that helps people make decisions without having to get another set of permits, another survey. And again, I looked at a whole lot of towns across the country, and I think that we could probably come up with something that would be standardized and would be easily understood by the public. And that would be my objective.
I would start with
Yeah.
the legal and the insurance ramifications of doing any of it to start with, and then proceed from there.
To me, this is no different than we did the part-time police, that a couple commissioners held meetings with the police department, and we tried to work some stuff out that in that case didn't result in anything, but in this case, I would hope would result with some ideas of.
It just would have to be a formal.
Yeah, I know, it has to be a formal meeting, I understand that. When I say a couple I don't mean we go in a back room.
Yeah, I'm with the advertisements, the minutes, all that.
Right. Like the part-time police discussions that we had. So, commissioners, do you want to wait until the town manager gets feedback from League of Municipalities? Because whether there's language that, whether this can be done without liability to the town? To me, a lot of that's going to assume on language. what language can do, but we can wait on that for a month until we set something up.
I think we need as much legal advice and exposure to information as possible. Agreed.
I agree.
Years ago, when it first started being talked about, I tried my best to express my concern and frustration with it because we're a long ways from where we need to be.
Again, we made a mistake when the question was, do we need to do something more definitive in defining this, defining parameters? And we all thought, we all said, no, people will understand what they need to do, and that just hasn't been the case. Not everybody has understood.
I'm just curious. Utility companies, there's utilities in all these right-of-ways where the post and rope is currently located.
That's correct.
It's called 811.
Yeah.
But how do they navigate when the repairs gotta be done and you just,
They pull it out.
okay.
That's,
So-
the whole point of post and rope is it's not set in stone. It can be pulled out. It's
So-
just like a shrub that's in the way that
Okay.
gets pulled out.
That was my question. So
That's
they-
what it's
they-
supposed to
If
be.
it's in the way, it gets moved.
Yeah,
The
anytime you put something in the right of way, that right of way is there for a purpose. And if the utility company is part of that right of way easement, or the phone company or gas company, when they have to remove that, then it's at your cost to put it back.
Mhm.
You're putting it there at your risk in that right of way. That is property you can use, but anything you place in that right of way is at your own risk.
And it is defined in the ordinances.
Well, it is defined in law, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's in law, but it's in the ordinance about you assume the risk. So. Okay, so we're asking the town manager to get information on liability for us having items in the right-of-way.
And any discussions necessary with the town attorney to make sure we can proceed.
All right, Ms. Hewitt, you got that?
Got it.
Number 18. Madam Clerk?
You guys interviewed earlier today. I have ballots in front of you if you would like to vote by ballot. If you do want to do it that way, you need to make sure to sign it. If we do it by ballot, if you guys don't care, could we do it at one board at a time just because of I know it'll take longer, but I think in the long run it'll be faster. I think it'll be faster that way. So if we could do Parks and Rec first, that would probably be easiest. Thank you. And I'll try to be fast. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have a tie for the second member, so if you guys could, on a piece of paper with your name on it, vote between Peggy and Rick. Just one name with your name on a piece of paper.
Do we have a time again?
Yeah, this is one of those lovely positions. I don't ever get to do anything except be the bad guy. All right, who is it? Again? Oh, my goodness. Well, we've got a list of some good names there. Rick, don't shoot me, but I'm gonna have to say Peggy and ask Rick to keep your name available, because I know you can help us in the future, and I know, Peggy, you're gonna soon want to, enjoy other things.
And I know Christy's on the phone, she would say this if she was here, her board is a working board, they do all kinds of events like tie-dye, and she's always looking for volunteers, so if you want to volunteer, I'm sure she'll take you. All right, Christy?
She's on.
Oh, you're
Absolutely.
mute. Oh, gotcha.
I'll take every volunteer in the audience next Tuesday.
Tuesday, tie-dye. Okay,
All right.
the next one, sorry.
Wait, let
Oh,
me say one thing. Rick, we will use you in some capacity and appreciate your willingness to help. Please don't hurt me. Keith Smith, does he understand how much pay he's getting?
You're getting a lot of pay. You're the other guy.
All right, very good.
Okay, if we could do planning and zoning board regular member, please. Okay, I love everybody's signatures, but you picked two, I only need one.
Oh.
That was close, you almost had another one, but.
John Kane. Will be serving on Planning and Zoning Board. Thank you, John, and thank the rest of you for submitting your name.
Okay, now he is the alternate, but make sure you cross out John's name so that you do not vote for John. So there's two alternates, cross out John's name and I'll select those ones.
You should have another
Two
piece of
spots for
paper
this one.
for planning and zoning.
Yeah, yes. Yep,
Yeah,
cross
but there were
John.
two for planning and zoning. One was for the full member and one was for the alternate. There it is. There it is. There it is. He missed it.
This is why I wanted to do it one at a
I
time
know,
today. I
that's
thought
okay.
it might be like this.
So, so Mark is willing to continue. He was the one who's already an alternate and wants to continue.
Thank you, sir.
These are alternates.
Yes.
All right, Planning and Zoning Board alternate. Congratulations to Mark Francis and Aldo Rovito.
Okay, so now when we do Board of Adjustment, you have to cross out, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have to cross out. We just lost an alternate member, so I need you to pick, I know that's not what the form says, but I need you to pick a regular member and one alternate. We need to add one.
That's on the bid.
Oh, no, yes, The Board of Adjustment, hold on a second. No, I need two. I need two alternates because Aldo's gonna move to Planning and Zoning Board, so we have to fill his spot too.
But there's only one alternate.
So unless a couple people said they'd be interested in serving on other boards.
I got it.
Well, yeah, there you go. Look, they're pointing at you. Rick.
Same pay.
Oh, Rick McIntyre.
Board of Adjustment doesn't meet as frequently, they just meet on an as-needed basis. Well, they have been lately, but they typically don't. They're once a month also, but they don't meet unless they have a case, and they go
Okay.
through variances, and we get training for that one. Volunteers. Keep it down over there, Tim. Don't be scaring away my volunteers. Oh, Lord. Sorry, last one.
Oh, my goodness.
I have two, sorry, there's two. It says one, but there's really two. He switched boards.
I'm slow. Explain to me, because none of them are certain who,
Richard Griffin is our regular member,
okay.
and then these two will be our alternate members, because you can only serve on one board, and we took Aldo off the Board of Adjustment to put him on P&Z.
Okay. Richard Griffin, you will be a regular member of the Board of Adjustment, and Gerald Arnold and Rick will be alternates.
Perfect.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Are we through with that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Thank
All right, number 19 on our agenda, Ms. Pat, financial report.
Right. So as we now move to the financial reports that are put together every month and appear on the town website and that commissioners look at, the monthly financial report provides data in comparison to the current revenue and appropriations estimates, but there is not a column that shows continually what the proposed budget number was. And for simplicity, and it helps a lot, to have the fixed number of what our budget ordinance said was the anticipated revenue or expenditure as a fixed number that you compare everything else to. And so when we make a budget amendment, and then that becomes the new estimated number for the year, that's fine, but you always want to be able to see the beginning of the year assumption of what the budget was going to be. So I'm proposing that our financial report includes a column that gives the fixed budget numbers that remains unchanged through the year, that everything then continues from there as is. And that's easily done, it's just adding that column. And the other thing is, as we start the pier property project, and we've discussed this as a board, that there's going to be a level of detail that we're going to want to see in the financial reports so that we can see specifically how much is being put into the piers specifically, the buildings specifically, the access specifically. I don't know if we want to go to the level of we say, and we even want to see how much restrooms cost. But I believe that we need to consult with the finance officer, and I think probably Tim would also be a good person to make some suggestions of what the appropriate level of detail should be. I don't want to do overkill and I don't want to do underkill. And again, how Oak Island handled it might be a good way of looking at it, because I know they did pier, they did building, they did events center, which we don't have. But I'm thinking we should have several lines, but it doesn't have to be huge, but we do need to keep track. So if the town manager and planning and inspections would like to bring some suggestions back next month of what the appropriate level of breakdown would be for us to discuss, so that, we can have this all agreed and in place by the end of September. So I need to understand if the rest of the board agrees on the change to the monthly financial report.
Yes, it's fine with me.
Yeah?
Doctor, like I said, the consensus of the board, Mr. Hewitt, do you understand?
Okay.
Okay.
And then that next month, you can bring forward what you think is the appropriate level of detail for the pier property project.
All right, anything else? All right, number 20 on the agenda, public comments on general items. If you'll raise your hand, let me recognize you and come to the podium and give us your name and address. You can talk about anything you want to for 3 minutes. That's the lady over here in beat you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Paula Woods, and I live in Supply, and this is my beach, and I come here a lot. And the reason I'm here is I'm concerned about the lack of lifeguards. Today was an alert for riptide. Did anybody know it? On the beach, I doubt it. We've got the spots that are going to be opening up over here by the Dock Restaurant, that I feel that even if we have lifeguards in centralized, populated locations, people are paying for parking, and they should be paying for some sort of protection. So that is the reason I'm here.
All right.
I
Thank
don't
you
know
so
how I
much.
need to proceed.
Well, you put in a request,
Okay,
and that's what you should do.
okay, so I put in a request here.
Yes, ma'am.
Write it.
This is not a debate opportunity.
Okay.
It's just an opportunity for you to speak.
Great.
So you've
Okay,
done
so
what
thank
you're
you, I
supposed
will
to
do that. Great.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Just like to discuss some of the things that was talked about earlier. I think I'm not alone when I say nobody wants for anyone to get hurt in a golf cart on Ocean Boulevard, the beach, the pier, our homes, or anywhere. When all the concern about the pier was dangerous and unfit, the fact that there was a high possibility that those who would get on it would get hurt, or, I went to the owner and I said, just out of curiosity, how many times has somebody got hurt over the last 20, 30, 40 years? Because you would file a claim because someone would slip and fall. He said one person. So while I understand there may be safety issues on Ocean Boulevard with golf carts, and obviously we don't want anyone to get hurt, I don't know that you can legislate safety any more you can legislate morality. The responsibility is not to you. There's not a responsibility of this board to make sure everybody's safe when they come over here. The responsibility is for a mother and a father and that family unit to exercise their freedom and to educate their children on how to be safe. Now, you can't prevent accidents from happening. And as much as we try, Tim makes sure every day that he enforces building codes that is written by the insurance department to prevent loss of life, loss of property. But accidents still happen. And so while we don't want that to happen, I don't think it's the responsibility of the board. I don't think it's the responsibility of the police. I don't think it's the responsibility of anybody but the individual members to legislate or to educate their children and their family. And so I don't think you can, put anything down on paper that's going to make anybody any more safer. You can try. One thing that that I think that we may not have looked at is when we're talking about repaving out here, there's some sections where, you talk about a bike lane. My suggestion is if you're lightweight and you're on a bike, if you'll visit the food trucks, you may get a little bit more buoyancy to prevent you from being pushed off. Just a plug for our local restaurants and food trucks that might be out there. One thing that I thought was odd in this discussion today, we talked about the verbiage of golf carts, low-speed vehicles. Correct me if I'm wrong, when the statute was come out and we were discussing whether we could put golf carts or low-speed vehicles, it was determined, if I remember right, that the general statutes refer to them as low-speed vehicles. And that's why we chose that language. Yet, it's ironic, and it's probably a state and federal thing, but the forms that we report the accidents on don't have the same verbiage that our statutes have. Maybe that's because it's a state statute and it's a federal form. Seems like there should be some way we could bridge those two, other than just, they're always other. Let's see, anything else? I guess not.
Sir, if you will come back. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but for those that cannot see who's speaking, you have to give your name for those that are listening, sir, if you will state your name.
My apologies. My former name was, my name is Keith Smith. I live at 105 Durham Street.
Thank you very much. All right, anyone else? Anyone else want to speak about anything? All righty, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, Town Manager's Report.
Yes, sir. Concerning the FEMA Storm Damage Repair Project, or Central Reach Project 2, the second evolution of that, the short version of it is that we have rolled over the special obligation bond into year 2, an amount of $4.28 million at a new rate of 3.84%, and that amount of $4.28 million represents those amounts that have been submitted to FEMA, which we're waiting for reimbursement on. That's $3.6 million, and the final estimated construction closeout cost. The final reimbursement for the payout, final reimbursements for payoff are going to be subject to how fast FEMA gets the money back to us and conducting their final inspections. To give you an idea of what that 3.84% represents in year 2, that's going to cost $164,000. For reference, the first year of interest costs was $453,000. So in total, it looks like we will incur $617,000 of interest expense, depending on, again, how long it takes FEMA to reimburse us for our last expenses. That eligibility of the $617,000 as far as the FEMA reimbursement has not been determined yet. So the funding for that will have to be provided from existing cash or fund balances if the interest costs are deemed ineligible. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, we've answered 3 federal requests for information concerning the interest payments eligibility. We're in uncharted waters here. Regarding Seagull Street paving status, the paving has been completed. We're awaiting the final inspection, and I anticipate on a per 50-foot lot cost share basis that equaling about $2,800 per 50-foot lot. Of course, if you got a bigger lot, it'll be prorated accordingly. So the formal steps to assess that $2,800 or whatever the final cost determination may be will be accomplished over the course of the next several months. There's a public process for publishing of the scroll, the tax scroll that the board has to act on. And the point that I want to make here is that the time lag between incurring those construction costs, paying the bills, and collecting the assessments is going to impact, since we have an audit coming up here, in the not too distant future, will impact your general fund balance available by the equivalent of a penny on the tax rate. Moving on to personnel, Tim mentioned it briefly, but manning, recruitment, and retention continue to be challenging for the town staff here. Of our 29 full-time equivalent positions, only 24 of those are filled with regular full-time employees, some 82%. Two of the remaining 5 vacant positions are filled with temporary hires, which, like Tim said, are short-timers. We are actively recruiting for 2 police officers, 1 public works technician, and 2 administrative assistants in the front office. Good news regarding parking revenues is that we've recently received enabling legislation that amends the rules for how parking revenues are made, and that enabling legislation has been defined for Holden Beach to be used for any public purpose. Parking revenues can be used for any public purpose and has been ratified by the General Assembly. Concerning Lift Station 1, I know I was telling Chris Clemens earlier this week that it only took me 5 or 6 budget messages writing in there that we need to elevate the lift stations for storm damage protection before we got something going, and now we've actually had 2 of those lift stations elevated to get them out of the floodplain. Over the last 3 years, this being the most recent one during the 4th of July week, what we're seeing with the performance of Lift Station 1 is that it's given us, the Public Works Director and I, cause of concern. I believe that we're going to have to go into an upfit mode for Lift Station 1 to increase the capacity, the design improvements for access, and also some odor control. I don't think that we're going to last 3 more years with the capacity that exists in that lift station. Those 20-year-old assumptions that the design was predicated on are going to be, have been, and are going to be impacted by build-out, redevelopment, and new development. The East End is not going to stay static forever. The homes that are being redeveloped here, we're seeing the little 4-bedroom H-frames being hauled off and larger homes going in. What we will do is we will bring forward suggestions, since this is not in our capital plan and hasn't been raised to the level of discussion for the board's decision yet. We will bring forward suggestions for an approach so that the board can consider in the coming months for proper engineering evaluations and considerations of a capital project. I do want to point out that the Local Government Commission has modified its debt issuance calendar, and which will require accelerated audit submissions for the November and December meetings, and probably also the January meetings, based on the dovetailing of potential federal budget timings of sewer and stormwater appropriations, and I'm not anticipating the need to alter our local audit schedule, i.e. the town probably won't be in a position to borrow any funds until after the new year, but certainly sometime thereafter. But anyway, that's my report for the evening.
Any questions of Mr. Hewitt?
Yeah, David, do we have any sort of target of when we expect to hear about the federal, whether we get the federal, any of the federal earmark approvals? Do you have a?
I haven't read this month's legislative report. I should know that answer, but I don't.
Okay.
I have to get back to you.
Okay.
But that's why I phrased that like that. I'm not certain about how that those federal appropriations are going to drop. I was just tickled to death that we were able to to have some appropriations put forward by the congressional, by Congressman Alger.
I just read the state budget, and I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get anything for our lift station. I was really hoping that we might get, some of that come, but we weren't in those cities. Is there anything else at the state level that we might be able to put in for anything?
What I would suggest to the board, based on information that came out of the managers meeting last year, was some of the appropriations for our local communities neighboring us, is that now is the perfect time for the board to start working with our local legislators in order to get ready for an ask for the next session of the General Assembly, which is going to be the long session, and it's an appropriate and perfect time. I think that they're putting in a $50 million interchange in Whiteville to get people off of 74 to send them down to the beach. The local option, the local sales and use tax, there's a bill that is going to skim 4, 6, 8% over the next 3 years and be sent to the Department of Transportation to build roads and infrastructure. I know that Southport recently got money for their waterfront there, so I would just encourage the board to be thinking about the ask that we want to make in anticipation of the General Assembly convening after the turn of the new year. It's totally appropriate to do that.
Okay.
Because direct appropriations are the best kind.
And just one other, on Lift Station 1, I just remember 4 years ago, we were not anticipating really having to do anything.
Right.
Lift Station 1, so this is really about not just new houses, but it's also the creation of, the remodeling, the renovations, making bigger houses that was not factored in as much.
There were three reasons that I want to, that I point out there, is that we're building out other vacant lots. There's build out on vacant lots. Homes are being redeveloped, hauled off, and large ones putting in, and then there's going to be totally new development of new tracts of land is what I'm forecasting.
I thought when we discussed the new development, like a whole big new development tracts of land, there was a lot that the developer then would actually have to pay for that would be putting that infrastructure in. No?
Some of it has to be paid for, right. Some of it will have to be paid for, but capacity that's already been paid for has been paid for and used for other purposes.
All right, any more questions? Hearing none, the mayor's comments. Some of you may have heard that there was a proposed shark fishing tournament that's supposed to be taking place. And when word got out, people started calling me and asking me about what town of Holden Beach thought about it. And I looked into it and made an immediate decision to notify the other mayors in the county, and the overwhelming, without objection from any of the others, we took action to try to prevent that event from taking place, and then it got on the TV and other news media. Mr. Hewitt delivered some legal documents that Mr. Green prepared for the town to formally object through the court system. To make a long story short, we If I misstate this, Mr. Green, correct me, but when Mr. Green's proper paperwork was presented, we got what we asked for, and that was the working with the bait and tackle shop in Southport that was going to sponsor the event. That bait and tackle shop changed the dates and moved it over to October. And anyway, there has been some blowback from some fishermen that misunderstood, that thought that the town of Holden Beach was trying to stop all fishing from our ocean front shoreline. And those that contacted me, I hope I got the point across that we the town are not opposed to people fishing from our beach, but we do have a major problem with people fishing for sharks in and around our swimmers. And believe it or not, people do swim at night. I remember whenever I was a young, dumber kid than I am now, I surfed in the moonlight. So I just don't like the idea of people fishing where people are swimming, and Lord knows if we got somebody that got hurt from a shark on Holden Beach and made national news, and the #1 family beach in America is supporting shark fishing amongst its swimmers and vacationers. I just don't think that's the kind of publicity we need. So thanks to Mr. Green and others that were involved in the support of the commissioners, I think we've headed that off for a while, and we'll see what's forthcoming. My understanding is that the bait tackle shop is going to pursue any help that business can get in supporting their right to fish the way they had expected the event to take place. So I don't think it's over with, but we'll see what happens. Moving on to the next subject, hurricanes. It is hurricane season, and we, the town staff, will be meeting and making our plans as we do every year, and that will be forthcoming here in the near future. We seem to have, through the years, been able to come together with ideas and modify the things that we have been doing in the past, and moving on to better ideas as we continue to go through the future in our plans. So I just want to reassure the general public, property owners and visitors and so forth, that the town of Holden Beach is aware that it is hurricane season, and we will be prepared, as we always are. And so look for some announcements in the near future about dates and so forth and things that we may be doing. Next item, I'd like to address the fine job that the police department has been doing with traffic this year, on weekends especially, coming onto the island. I don't think that we've had a year as good as we've enjoyed this year, at least in recent years. We continue to get better in handling the high volume of traffic trying to turn left as they come down the bridge to the Ocean Boulevard intersection, by blocking off the left turn. From time to time, we have been able to make the traffic flow better. So kudos to the police department for a job well done. I'd also like, next subject, to make a comment about our concert program. I think I have. I've been to each one this year. I try to make it virtually 100% every year in attendance to these concerts. And I've observed this year, especially, and it might be my imagination, but I think I'm correct in saying that we're seeing more little kids out on the dance floor having a big time with their families, which I think is a wonderful thing. But the main point I'd like to make is I think that the overall behavior of the crowd Though the crowds have been large, I think the overall behavior is maybe the best I ever remember seeing. We just have not had any major issues that I'm aware of. And again, I think a lot of that is promoting the family atmosphere that we have at Holden Beach and what we're respected for and what we stand for. But I also think it's also due to our police department. They're present and easily seen and on top of things. And I think everybody that's been involved with that program, Christy and her staff and all the staff, I think it's just marvelous that we've enjoyed the family atmosphere that we've enjoyed here at Holden Beach, and proud of this place. So thanks to everybody for all the good job you're doing. And Mr. Smith, what do you have to say tonight?
Well, I agree on the concerts, Alan. They have been excellent this year. The crowds have been bigger than I can ever remember, and the quality of the bands has been outstanding. I really can't say anything negative about it at all. I'd like to thank all the folks that came out this evening and offered their services to work on our boards. They are quite the asset to the town of Holden Beach. I know we had some that didn't get on exactly the ones they wanted, but anytime that we can use, have our people on Holden Beach, which we are blessed with some really talented and intelligent people that live on Holden Beach. So having them come forward really has helped us a bunch, and we do appreciate it. I also want to, I've got to thank the police department. They've done a great job, but we need to do something again about the LSVs. And I'm willing to work with you guys anyway. You can just call me. I'll come to the office. We'll sit down and brainstorm, see if we can figure out something to educate the people that rent the carts, so they can educate the people that rent the carts from them, as well as the realtors that do the same. This was a tough evening for me. We've got an empty chair here, and that empty chair is going to be hard to fill. But the spirit of Gerald Brown will always be in my heart. The things that he helped me with and helped me through in my early days as a commissioner will never be forgotten. His ideals and his love for this town, I'll try to carry the torch on as best I possibly can. But he's going to be dearly missed, and we're going to do the best we can to carry on. That's it.
Brian?
I also echo my appreciation for the people that are willing to serve on the boards, and I appreciate your time. It is a valuable help to the community for what you guys are doing. Many thanks again, Jeremy, Frank, to you guys and your staff. Anybody that knows anybody that would like to work at this great town, please pass the word on that our staff's got a few holes in it, and we desperately need them filled. And they may or may not have to have qualifications in every department. They can be trained, because we have some talented people here that can help them get off the ground, especially in administrative positions, I would think. I do appreciate everybody coming out tonight, as well as your emails. Congratulations, I guess, to Sunset Slush, and to all the many people that wanted to enjoy your product out on the beach strand. I wish you guys the best, and I hope it puts smiles on a lot of people's faces. I'm getting a little choked up now because of that empty seat over there, and I know everybody at the beach misses that guy. He's still got family here and some unfinished business, and keep those people in your prayers. We're going to do the best we possibly can to make sure that they're well taken care of. I'm waiting on the ground to shake, but hadn't felt it yet. But I know the guy's there. He loved his town. He didn't always come across that way. I'll be short, but he got me out of bed like an old bulldog knocking on the door and said, hey, we gotta get up, we gotta go do this here, and I didn't know what he was up to, but it was to go sign up to be a board of commissioners. Or attempt, run for being a commissioner. And I said, man, you crazy. Come on, bro, get out. All right, so my point being that Gerald was always wanting to get you riled up. I tell you what he did at the end of the day. He had that way of calming you right back down and letting you know that life was precious and that everybody needed to just slow down a minute sometime. He had that way about it. He stirred the pot. Don't get me wrong. He put the pot on the stove and he'd get it hot. And he slid it right off at the end of the day. And he loved his town, and he loved Jane, he loved his family, he loved that little dog Skunk. And hallelujah, man, like you always said. Hallelujah. Y'all keep him in your hearts, and keep his family in your prayers. And we'll all miss him up here.
Doc?
I want to thank Tim and Jeremy and Frank for helping with those ordinances that we were able to iron out tonight and get straight. I appreciate all the extra work y'all did on that. I know it was a lot of time and effort, and I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody who's volunteering to work on our committees. If it wasn't for the committees, we wouldn't get a lot of this done. It's a thankless job. But we thank you for getting involved. The involvement of the public is necessary, just like all the emails and everything that we got. The numerous emails we got about Sunset Slush, I think we're gonna make a lot of people happy. And especially with paid parking, people don't have to leave the beach to get something cool and refreshing. So best of luck to you guys. I hope it's gonna work out. And being the newbie to this board, I got the pleasure of sitting right next here to Gerald. So I didn't know him that long, but it's been a tough night. He always had a smile when he got here, told me hello. Always got a tap on the leg every now and then. And I don't know if y'all saw that TV flashing up back there a little bit. It flashed in green a little while ago. I think you're right, Brian, he was here. But my condolences to the family. He's going to be missed.
Ms. Pat?
I'm going to echo what everybody has said about thanks to all of the volunteers who came forward, who, offered to serve on different boards. I'd also like to encourage people who didn't get selected. If you're interested in the board, try to come to some of the meetings. It's really interesting. It's a good way to learn. You also get to make public comment at those meetings as well, so you can give input even if you're not sitting up front. Just a comment, I've had a number of people sending me messages about, wow, that water on the street's been really bad, a couple times recently. We've had some downpours. It's been hellacious for a long stretch of time on the road. And I just want to remind everybody, we do have plans, in the works about working on drainage on the streets and things. I think that these downpours we've had, where we've been driving through a long stretch of many inches deep, is just a reminder that that needs to stay a priority, and we will move forward on it. And last, I didn't always agree with what Gerald wanted to do, but I did like him as a person, and I have to agree. He'll be missed.
Number 23A, we're due to go into closed session. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Will you read?
Executive session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the town attorney.
Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you for your time, David.